Okay, let's talk about Vanderpump Rules. We'll start with a 3-sentence summary. David.
All right. Well, the stakes are high now because the first one you both were so happy about. But let's see if I can do this just as well. Well, we get both sides of entrepreneurialism when James DJs a party at a fancy hotel, and Katie and Ariana continue to flounder with their sandwich shop. The whole friend group is gripped by the news that Tom Schwartz made out with Scheana over 10 years ago, motivating Katie to sleep with Schwartz's best friend, Max. Meanwhile, Ariana is out of her relationship with Sandoval, but their shared housing arrangement is causing them both a lot of grief with no end in sight.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Great.
I love it.
Sold.
Okay, let's get into our artistic analysis. We'll start with you. What stood out in terms of themes or devices?
Well, one of the things that it's hard to tear yourself away of for this one is this villain setup for Katie and Ariana. I don't know how far these shoot in advance, if the sandwich shop was the case of some sort of mysterious arson and we're just setting up a plot line associated with that. But no show has ever said these two are the bad guys, whether it came to their little bullying of the whole hat incidents with Joe, the fact that they have done a second tasting in a year of these kind of mid-sounding sandwiches, that even Lisa Vanderpump is starting to be like, girls, get your shit together, which is wow, a bridge too far. And so I really liked that one. The other thing that really struck me was, and I had no better way of referencing it, except to say that there's this persistence of memory that seemed to run through this episode, that everyone remembers and hangs on to these memories, even though they become very distorted and what they mean has become very distorted. And so that decay seems to run a lot of the conflict of the episode, whether that's the Ariana Sandoval thing with their relationship and what the house means, Katie's past relationship with Schwartz, and this whole thing with Scheana. It's just a lot of decay that drives conflict, which is interesting.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting how time treats all of these conflicts differently, because we have seen the fact that James cheated on Raquel with Lala, and that is played off as no big deal. But that's way more recent than this makeout session between Scheana and Tom Schwartz. This is somehow a much bigger deal to this group. Dylan, what did you have for your analysis?
Well, in terms of the way it was framed, one thing that's really interesting to me is we've already talked a lot about how this season Lala has kind of surprisingly been emerging as kind of a mature voice of reason in the show, and as somebody who has kind of been straddling both sides, remaining still a supporter and friend of Ariana and Katie, while also being open to being friends with Tom Sandoval and seeing his perspective. And that the way she's been having a lot of one-on-ones with everybody in the cast, and showing a pretty reasonable, aware analysis of the situation. In this episode, we really see the show really embracing, I think, the idea that Lala has become kind of the middle ground voice of reason / audience substitute, by making it seem like the show's editing is in league with her. We have a moment where she's in the confessional and she's like, oh, this is boring, let's skip ahead to the interesting part. And they have a little graphic of the editing being done as if it were being done at her behest, as if the editing choices being made and Lala's perspective have become joined together. The show's perspective really starts to link up with Lala's own perspective. I really like that. We get that at the end of the episode too, where she kind of provides these final points on each character. While we get for some reason a grainy black and white filter over shots of them while she talks. So that's really interesting to me that the show is really embracing this idea that Lala is the new the new audience perspective within the show in a way.
I love that take, Dylan, because even when Lala shows up for Sandoval's meditation sound bath thing,
or whatever the hell that thing was.
Her face was my face too, and it was as if to say, I am watching an alien surgical procedure that I can't possibly understand. Even though, like, girl, you're a water sommelier, so like, calm down. Just what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, she is the one who is like, oh, why don't we go to the place where we pump syringes of goo into our mouths?
Thank you.
Like, it's not like she is totally free of indulging in like Southern California woo-woo bullshit herself.
Have you all been to Southern California? Because this shit is real. Like, this is just constantly all over the place there.
I haven't spent a ton of time in Southern California. Dylan was in LA.
There, I spent some time there last winter. I definitely caught glimpses of the reality of this stuff, which I love. I find it hilarious. Like, I find Dr. Vu hilarious. Yeah. This guy that you know, like, just plays some like new wave vibe jams and just shouts at Sandoval where he wears a blindfold, and it's just I love these bullshit fake doctors who just totally make their stuff up.
And what we learned while being there, so we were there for 3 months because we had to work with the consulate who was based there in LA. So we just got an Airbnb for 3 months and just lived in Hollywood. Which is great. We ate at Pump for goodness sake. Like,
oh
man, listen, this is what I was waiting for. It was coming on this podcast. It was fine. There's nothing to write home about. But like, we would even meet some of these people when we would go out to like the bar, and they'd be like, "Oh no, I don't like fucking believe in any of this shit, but I charge $600 an hour. So like, you put on a front and you sell it." And I was like, that is so psychologically exhausting to do as your career. And like, a lot of us have jobs where we don't really believe in the output of them, but they're not like our personal like endeavor. And we're not selling ourselves as like the sound bath person of LA.
Yeah. This sound bath scene was one of like my, one of the things that I picked up on in terms of how it tied in with one of the themes this season, which is this like rebirth for Tom Sandoval. The fact that we got something that like so, it sounded so much like someone in labor, the way that he was like having these like controlled breathings and like grunting and this loud like final push that we got. Really,
we were so close to getting into like the altered states, like Ken Russell montage there.
Yeah, totally.
Ken Russell fans will love that.
Good. Enjoy, all of you. Actually, is a good trigger for another artistic thing that I sort of picked up, which is this like thing that Schwartz has got going on with the use of substances, the role of addiction, and this sort of using the language of addiction with sobriety, which I used to work with adolescents who had drug problems. This was my bread and butter. And so I've never heard of someone being like, I'm going to binge sobriety this weekend. Like, I'm just going to like really go for it. That was
going a sobriety bender.
Yeah. He hasn't drank in 3 days. He says, I'm on a sobriety bender.
Sober for 3 days straight, man.
It is still in your system. And I assume like other substances are part of his life as well.
Oh yeah,
just a
totally.
guess. Okay, great.
Yeah. Another thing that I picked up on visually was this scene that we got at lunch where we have this like walk up of Sandoval with his like new vibe, and he like shows up and everyone at the table is wearing black except for him, who's in this like bright yellow and white, and like we're seeing this like fresh reborn Sandoval immediately following the scene that we got where we saw his birthing scene. I love that. It was a nice touch. And I feel like Vanderpump Rules especially does a lot of this sort of visual storytelling with how people are dressed. Like we got it. A notable example would be at the end of last season where we got the funeral, the rooftop funeral scene where Schwartz comes in to talk to Ariana in the fallout of Sandoval, and everyone is wearing like black for his funeral, basically. I just love these touches where they are able to communicate things through the wardrobe choices of these people. Love it.
That is so great, because I'm sure that like I picked up on that without knowing that I was picking up on that, but I didn't actively clock wardrobe as something, because I guess I had suspended enough disbelief that these people were all dressing themselves, except for, of course, in the first scene, James does not dress himself. His girlfriend Allie does, and get it, Allie. I say, get it. And we never heard from them again. That was like their one scene, and they were gone.
Okay, let's do a poll quote. What were the quote or quotes that stood out to you?
I had to pick a winner eventually, and because of the way in which her story was told, especially at the climax of the end of the episode, it was Katie in a confessional talking about all the things she didn't like, but among them, the worst thing that she cannot stand is especially lying by omission. And this confessional was used to sell me, the viewer, that she has an ethical code for herself, which is that people shouldn't lie by omission. And then at the end of the episode, she lies by omission about sleeping with Max. Ergo, she has violated the only thing that I know about her, which is this one ethical construct. And that makes her a hypocrite, which we all agree is a villain trait.
Yeah, totally. Also, a little fun thing this week was we didn't see Max appear on screen. Oh, I guess we got a flashback of him on Vanderpump Rules.
Yeah,
but he was in the background of Guys Night in the Valley. You could see him there, and I thought that was a nice little Easter egg.
Notice that, actually.
Fun. I didn't clock that. No.
Yeah. Let's get into our highlights. David, we'll start with you. What were your highlights here?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Schwartz and his yo-yoing relationship with addiction and these terms were just wild to me. I wrote a lot of them down. A lot of them were contenders for my pull quote because they were so wild. I loved that at one point in time he referred to Scheana kissing him as microdosing on him. And that's the most asshole thing you can say in the entire world, is that a kiss for me is like a microdose of me. Barf, barf, barf. I don't want to give any of your listeners with misophonia a problem, or I would make a retching noise on mic. It was the worst.
Also, another thing to keep in mind, I don't know if you if this was like brought up in the episode, but like he's often talking in these bullshit fake addiction terms around Lala, who is somebody who was an alcoholic who's been recovered for years.
She's in recovery. Yeah. That's fantastic. Good on you, Lala.
And she has to put up with Schwartz being like, I'm like binging sobriety and sober curious these days.
The doctor said if I keep rolling my eyes, they're going to get stuck this way. So we're going to move on. The other highlight that we haven't talked about yet that I love, because I think this would be me if I was on Vanderpump Rules, is Scheana tracking everyone was sold as this like terrible thing. But I'm kind of obsessed with her doing this. I love her. Go Scheana, go.
Yeah,
I have questions because I'm a bit of a Luddite. I'm not a very like I don't know what my phone does. It's just a brick there that occasionally makes noises. But is this a thing that a lot of people do? Like they're tracking their friends. I have never
heard of it. Yeah.
Is that like a normal thing for a certain friends group that you just like you have like all of your friends and acquaintances apparently just like have their phones tracked and you check their locations before you go to bed at night? Like what is this?
You need to
is this normal?
You need to consent to this behavior. So the only things that I track are my husband and then anything we've put an AirTag on, which frankly is just luggage, and it's only in case our luggage gets lost during travel. It's the most boring version of Scheana in the entire world. But I know where my husband is in case like he isn't home and like I can see that his phone is in jail and I do nothing, or he's in the hospital and I go and attend to him, or he's just hasn't returned from the bar yet. That I think is normal when you're in an 18-year marriage. I think knowing 63 of your friends' locations. First of all, even to look at the map, because it's like we'll have all of their little faces on a map of Los Angeles. That's wild bananas to me.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before, and I love it. Like the fact that people would consent to this. Scheana, if you want to track my location, just like slide into our DMs.
No, I was about to say post recording, we'll just all enable this and we can see where each other are. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is I've never heard of this. I guess maybe it's a thing that people do, but brand new behavior to me.
I mean, you sort of have to assume that Scheana comes up to new people in her life and goes, share your location with me.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If it's like 60 people, not all of those are your close friends. No, you don't have 60 close friends. There are acquaintances that you are presumably asking for permission to track everything they do. How does she keep getting away with it? Why has the NSA tried to recruit her? Because she is apparently really good at this.
Yeah, send her down to Guantanamo. She can convince somebody to do something. Good for her.
Yeah.
That being said, it is that alien. You both told me to be on the lookout for like alien encounters in watching these. It's alien of me. It's alien to find somebody's location and make assumptions about their behavior based on that location. Truly and honestly, if I were to see my husband at a different, like what is clearly someone's apartment, I would be like, thank God, less work for me tonight. That would be my only reaction to that scenario.
Dylan, what were your highlights?
Yeah, I still really happy to have Joe there, and we could all agree that they were like super mean to Joe,
so
right? Like,
yeah, totally,
so mean. And speaking of like middle school behavior and stuff, it's like taking your hat off and being like, "No, you're not wearing your baseball cap. I'm gonna keep it from you," is such like schoolyard behavior, and such just like a naked attempt to like police their friend group and be like, no, you're not allowed in. Access denied. Well, not in the clubhouse.
And not just poor Joe, but poor little James is DJing his heart out and nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I love the scenes with James's DJing because like the music that we hear is all overlaid because they can't have anything with copyright and they need like clean audio. Right. So he's just there like mimicking while there's probably like soft music playing that isn't going to get picked up on all the mics.
Yeah, it's really definitely just for show because like you say, they're filming a scene. He can't be like blasting out copyrighted bangers. So he's just putting out a show in front of the cameras.
But also this bullying that you mentioned of Joe, I love how I think it was like Scheana's friend, was it Madison or whatever, was like complimented Joe's like eyebrows or her something. It's like, and Scheana just refused to like give her any credit. Like she just would not give it up.
The most disappointing part of the bullying for me is how much like Scheana is such an active participant in it, because Scheana has been the victim of bullying from those same women, like when she was newer to the show in earlier seasons, and now she seems like very, very invested in not being frozen out from the girl gang again, and has to show her loyalty to them and to being a member of the in-group by bullying the new person who comes in. But it's just disappointing to see like her feeling like she needs to take the lead in being a bully when she has been on the receiving end of that in the past.
What I also found interesting about this bullying was that like Lala was in the bullying group, but somehow evaded any culpability for what had happened. We sort of forget instantly that she was on that side of the divide.
Yeah, totally. That seems very intentional, but this show, or this dynamic that we see on this show is clearly steeped in this idea of othering, because we are seeing Tom Schwartz and Tom Sandoval get a not a complete free pass for their behavior, but they are a lot less derided and pushed aside than people in their orbit who are behaving less badly. We're seeing Joe get othered, and she clearly is she is clearly ADD, and that influences her behavior, and it's identifiable. And Billy Lee is another person that is getting sidelined and really ridden very hard by this group for just being a friend to Tom Sandoval. Yeah. And obviously Raquel is another person that has been treated very poorly and not given the same opportunity for redemption as Tom Sandoval. But the fact that we have this group of people who are, in the majority and all very neurotypical, othering people that, that don't align with them is kind of ugly to see. But yeah, that was just my pickup on that.
Yeah, and I just don't want to lose Joe's energy from the show, either from having her run off the show or from her feeling like she has to change the way she acts in order to stay on the show. Like, I've made fun of her in the past. It's easy to make fun of her, like, kind of outdated millennial, like, epic, so random personality. But that's a dying breed, actually. We need to protect the examples that are still there. No. And she's great. But seriously, she brings such a different, like, energy than everybody else does. It's very positive too. It's just always nice to have somebody who's not just conforming to the same, like, personality traits that most people have. She's sitting cross-legged in the confessional. I've never seen anybody sit cross-legged in a confessional in any of these shows before. Have you, Craig?
No, I can't remember.
There we go. Yeah. An example of why she's bringing something different to the show. So let's
I love her.
Let's protect her, let her live. And I hope to see more.
I'm a little bit worried that you're going to, like, kidnap me and Joe and force us to breed in captivity to, like, retain elder millennials or something. But I probably did resonate the most with Joe, which is that I have been to a party, instantly hated it, and left. And I like baggy clothes and wearing hats, like, even though I'm the only not hat wearer today. Oops.
I completely agree. I feel like this energy that she brings to the show is so unique, and it's this show is a show that was, like, dying prior to Sandoval and in need of, like, some fresh energy. And, like, we can't drag the Sandoval out, for seasons and seasons and seasons, even though it seems like everyone wants to do that. But this show, like, this show needs to keep evolving and keep, like, finding new sources of energy and conflict in order to stay interesting. And I feel like Joe is just such a great addition, especially, because she does bring, like, this built-in conflict with Katie because of her relationship with Schwartz. But just having her personality, which is something that we have, like, not seen anyone like this on this show or on Bravo before. A very welcome addition.
Yeah, and screw Katie for calling her a crack whore that needs to be burned or whatever. Like, so I'm sorry, Katie. I guess she's just not normal and cool enough that she can, like, shuffle around in a bedrobe, scowling and projecting hate at everyone.
But in that way, I also loved Katie. I mean, Katie is so mustache twirling. The train will hit you in 5 minutes. Like, she is the villain of villains. I found
twirling the edges of her bob. Actually,
she does have an evil bob. Like, if you cast someone and, like, you're the bad guy, this would be the haircut you give them. Ariana, on the other hand,
why does she just wear nightgowns now? What did she start doing that?
I can't fault her that. I too would wear.
I'm not saying I fault her that. It's just like it's a real choice. She's a couple episodes away from just having, like, a little floppy hat with a pom pom and carrying, like, a single candle on a dish and getting spooked by noises in the other room.
I love that take, because I was actually going to go that she's like a Bond girl, where she's, like, has, like, a sheet draped over her after just getting, like, railed by James, and like looking wistfully out a window, because that's sort of her vibe. Is she's, like, you can tell she's going to betray people. She does it by the climax of this episode. But whereas, like, Ariana is, like, what I think of more as, like, the prototypical housewives villain, in that, like, she's greedy, or she wants this thing that's sort of undefined, and she uses her emotional manipulation to get what she wants, versus Katie, who's just, like, straight up cartoon villain. I love both of these two, though.
Dylan, did you have any other highlights here?
Lala responding to Schwartz's kind of joking, pseudo flirty, we haven't had sex yet with Schwartz, I would break your dick in half.
Yes, love it.
That was a good read. Yeah. Again, another classic Lala moment.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I love Lala too. Like, during the first scene, I was like, what is happening here? But it was the syringes. The syringes were the thing that was throwing me the most off in the entire world. By the time I got to actually know Lala, I was here for it. Big swings fashion-wise for Lala, big swings. But I'd rather you strike out and at least make a go for it than just walk to base.
Yeah. And just another little funny thing about the syringes for me is because she had to keep returning to that conversation to explain how she gained this piece of knowledge about Schwartz and Scheana kissing 12 years ago or something, which honestly, who cares? But at first she'd be like, so yeah, me and Schwartz were at the place where you have like the syringes of like what, and then later on she'd be like, so me and Schwartz were having juice anyways, like just like has to figure out ways to say this efficiently and get to the point because it's indescribable that whatever they were doing.
I had a few highlights here that we haven't touched on. One thing was I loved how the clip choice within this episode, like all the flashbacks that they chose and, you know, the scenes that they chose to represent only by clips. Like we got that moment of Tom Sandoval bowling and doing like the twirl and striking a pose. I thought that was great. We got to see a flashback to Shay's proposal to Scheana, and we got the "they love you" moment between Tom and Raquel.
That was so good. Oh my god.
Yeah, just like really great clip selection in this, and it was a nice walk down memory lane.
And a very efficient way to, like, if you're somebody who's new to the show and you don't know who Sandoval is, you know exactly who he is after seeing a clip of like his idea of going out for bowling, which is to go to the most ostentatious bowling alley and show up with his idea of a bowling outfit and being like, I'm going for like late 70s bowling vibes or whatever. That's classic Sandoval. You understand it right away just from seeing that.
100% agree. As the person who had never seen any of these, I know I misinterpreted the 1 to 3 stars thing, but I was prepared to give this 3 out of 3 stars because to me, this was a perfect episode of reality television. There were multiple loci of conflict. All of the conflict had stakes. Like Dylan, I didn't buy the stakes of a 10-year makeout questionable that even matter anymore. I didn't buy that, but the characters seemed to, and they sold it. I was spending all 56 minutes at the edge of my seat waiting for someone to be like, oh, who cares? But no one ever did. And so, you know what? Frankly, I bought it. I bought it because they sold it.
Yeah, I love how this was like set up so perfectly at the beginning of this show where Lala's talking about how she's like so done with people lying, and Katie talking about like lying by omission being such a big deal. And then at the end, we get to watch this piece of information float around based on a decision that Lala makes as to like who she's going to talk to first, whether it's going to be Scheana or Katie. And we see this information like move around and change, and the story adding depth through this whole scene at Sir at the end, where Schwartz goes over and like talks to Katie and Ariana right after, and then comes back and talks with Brock, and Brock is like, oh, by the way, did you know that Katie slept with your best friend Max like 2 nights ago? And then so there's like so much dimension that's like at play here, and we got this conflict between Scheana and Brock kind of manifest at the end, and Scheana just like such a pro, as frustrated as she is with Brock for like leaking this information to Tom Schwartz. She says she wanted to like keep that close because she's like making progress with the girls, but she knows that like this is a piece of information that she was going to be able to potentially use later in a strategic social setting, which is like the core of what these shows, like the game in these shows are. She sees that this like information is like losing its value immediately and needs to like make a pivot in her strategy, and chooses to expose this at a table, like expose Katie at a table in front of everyone in the moment where she's able to like defer a little bit of the blame onto Brock in this moment.
All of the blame, which is also what she's doing too, right? Because she is still so terrified of transgressing within the boundary of that girl gang and being like frozen out by them. She makes an explicit point of coming over to the table and being like, I'm not saying anything. None of this is coming from me. Brock is going to say it right now because I'm angry at him. And I'm just going to sit here with my arms crossed and show that I disapprove of this information being disseminated.
Totally.
It's funny. It's a failing of my own brain. I'm only able to hold one himbo at a time in my short-term memory. And so Brock Brock and Jax are the same person as far as I'm concerned. But it worked because he is this like, he's a lovable doof in this moment at the bar. He's like, oops, I guess telling people hurts something. How would I have known that? Perfect. I loved this whole thing at the end. It's funny for an episode that started a little slow with like, Allie dresses me and I'm DJing at this hotel to then evolve into this giant thing at the end that's like everybody now has a stake against Katie. It really made me want to watch the next episode, which is funny because Vanderpump Rules doesn't seem to care if I watch the next episode versus The Valley, which is like the stakes couldn't be higher. You have to come back.
Yeah, it's amazing. The comparison between Brock and Jax is really interesting to me because like, yeah, they do both have like huge himbo vibes, but if Jax were to leak this information, I would it's not that I think that Jax is like smarter than Brock, but it would seem like a more strategic decision coming from him, just because he is like a little bit more of a calculated reality star, whereas Brock, I feel like, is trying to like make his first play here. We've seen him on the show for like 3 seasons, and he hasn't really been one that is able to use information in a way that is strategic. So him to like, put this out there and be like, oh, I'm gonna, float this one piece of information that me and my wife, who are operating as a team now here, have, and for Scheana, who is like a pro at this, to be so like pissed off at him for doing that. I love to see him like fumble the ball here so badly, and to see like Scheana do the fumble recovery. It was brilliant.
I don't see it as much of as a fumble though. I think I agree that I think they were seeing Brock like becoming more of a player in this season, like becoming a guy who gets things done. I think that was the right moment to deliver the information, and I think he knew it. I think he was there like, all right, like it's time to turn things against Katie, and just like it is, and I love the way he comes out with his story and the way he describes it, the way he describes the emojis, like, and then she sent me like, he's got the eyes and the mouth's a straight line. It's just like that's great. Yeah. Like I was digging Brock in this episode. I've been digging him this season. He's been fun.
I think it was the right moment for the show for this to like come out, but from Sheena's perspective, like she's in a very like precarious situation with Katie especially, so to like have this come out right while she's like in hot water, I guess this kind of forced a conflict between Scheana and Katie that wasn't there at the beginning of this episode, and now there's like 2 elements at play for it. So I think that this is probably not how Scheana would have liked to play it if she was playing strictly for herself, but for the show, it definitely was the right moment.
I totally pick up on what you're putting down there, Craig, because it's a little bit like Scheana is in the NFL. She's playing at the highest professional level, and Brock is good at reality TV, but he's a college ball player. And so
he's a call up.
Yeah, he's still making mistakes. He's still fumbling a little bit, not actually fumbling, but like just not performing perfectly. And so that's probably a little bit more interesting game to watch as a spectator, but it's not the most well-crafted game that it sounds like Scheana is playing at in a totally different level. That's a really cool way of thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I think that about covers my highlights. Did you guys have anything else before we pick our stars?
That covers it for me.
I'm ready.
Cool. All right, let's get into our stars. David, who are your stars?
All right, right on the top, Lala. I mean, especially that now you have told me she's audience insert, and I am a narcissist. Ergo, of course, I love Lala. I didn't love her when she first showed up, and so she also then was most improved for me because of how great she was, especially at the end of the episode, just being like, I reject the premise of all this, and I'm out. Loved Lala. My number 2 is Katie. I think I've already talked about loving Katie. I love how evil she is. I love this thing that we're being sold on this. I even watched, I don't know how far I was supposed to go for this, but just because I was trying to look up a piece of information and it showed me a video of like an after thing that Katie was part of, I even watched a couple minutes of that. loved her there. She's great. And then I got to give it out for an underdog for the third position is T, this newcomer who has come in
going off the board.
Yeah, I really liked her. I liked how she was presented in this flashback as kind of like sitting behind the main group, but then she kind of got brought up, got ambushed by Ariana, and so I'm excited to see more T.
Yeah, totally. She was definitely like blindsided. I love that Brock made the decision to make that introduction. It's just so funny. So yeah, I think like Brock is deserving of a star. I'm going to go before you, Dylan. I think Brock deserves a star here, even though he didn't play things the way that we wanted, or that Scheana would have wanted. I think it worked great for TV and also the introduction with T. I have to also give a star to Lala. Just she's been really great this season for all the reasons that you have mentioned. And my third star, I think, is going to be the email that Sandoval sent to Ariana that interrupted that super tense conversation. And he's just like, sorry, Ariana. The first like dialogue that we see this season between these two is like, did you get that email that I sent?
Yeah. the first time they've spoken like since everything blew up is in literal as per my last email.
Yeah. No, and I'm sorry, Sandoval, who are you? My Midwestern aunt? Do you really need to come and be like, did you see the email? Did you get the it's like when you send somebody an email but they're not good enough with email to trust that it happens, so they text you and then they call you. Did you get my text about the email that I sent you? It was wild.
I just want to make sure it's sent.
At a hotel party where your buddy is DJing. Justice for James.
Yeah.
Dylan, who are your stars?
First star, got to give it up to Lala. I love Lala. I thought she had a terrible season last year, but this season she just keeps getting better and better to the point where they seem to have given her the reins of the show. So I like the Lala supremacy here. Second star, Joe, still repping Joe. Give us more Joe. Hats on for Joe. That's my new hashtag. Hats on for Joe. And third star, Brock, liking him more and more. And, a little thing about Brock, let's point out that he's added some drama to both of these shows, because if we go back to episode 1 of The Valley, Brock was the one who told Jax to pants Danny. He was the guy standing behind me like, oh, pull his pants down. Like, so he's making it happen on 2 shows now. He's stepping up. He's making things happen.
Wow.
Good for Brock.
Wow. Brock and Jax together is more than my poor little brain can handle.
That would be, we haven't really seen them interact that much, but it would be amazing to have just do like a buddy cop movie of Brock and Jack. It even sounds like a buddy cop movie. Really Brock and Jax. Like, wow.
Totally.